Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you're all in the best of your health. According to our today's lesson planner, we have lesson 2, that is stopping by woods on a snowy evening. So let's begin by reading our entire poem first. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have some promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Written by Robert Lee Frost, one of the famous poet of his age. So what basically this poem is about, let me give you a quick summary of this poem. It is much interesting and a beautiful poem that took place in a snowy weather when the writer of the poem, he stopped by the woods and kept on looking into them. The snow kept on falling all around him and all around the woods, although he loved he loved to stop and gaze at the scene because he was much fascinated by the beauty of the woods. So what he did, he stood there and he kept on looking around when his horse shook its bells and reminded him that he had a home to go. And he had some other promises to keep. So his horse reminded him that he had a long way to go before they can actually take a rest. And it is also said that it was one of the story that is related to the Frost, that means the writer himself. And he says that once he stood late up at night and he was writing something, and suddenly he realized that it was dawn, and he went outside for some fresh air, and it was snowing, and the snow was falling, and he beheld this beautiful sight. He loved this beautiful sight, and he was so inspired by the sight that he wrote this beautiful poem that was stopping by woods on a snowy evening. So this was a quick summary of our today's poem. Let's move towards our questions now. Alright, so our third question is, answer the following questions with reference to the context. One of the text from the story has been given, so we will simply answer the given questions that is related to this context. So the text is, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The first question is, who is the he the poet is speaking about? Who is this he in this text that the poet is talking about? And the answer is that he is the horse. The poet is talking about his horse. Next one is, what is a harness? What do you mean by harness? And the answer is that the leather harness is actually the leather straps or the belts that is used to control a horse. The harness is actually a kind of a belt around the horse's neck, which we use to control them. The third part is, what is the possible mistake? What could be the possible mistake that was made by the rider? And the answer is that the horse wonders whether the rider has made some mistake by stopping by the woods in this dark, snowy weather. So the horse was wondering, he was thinking that whether the rider had made some mistake by stopping by the woods, because it was so dark and it was a snowy weather. So they did not actually want to stop. They did not actually want to stop near the woods. So the horse thought that it was possibly a mistake. So this was our today's lesson. Thank you so much for listening.